Hello, friends. Welcome to my channel. In today's episode, I wanted to talk to you about, give you an update actually about my health. Since some of you were asking me that I needed to give an update regarding my RA symptoms and how I was doing in general with RA. So I definitely wanted to give that. But in addition to RA, something else actually happened to me late last year. And, I had about 3 to 4 months of really horrible symptoms, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And it turned out that I had early onset menopause. So that symptoms were really, really very scary and quite, I would say like very unusual. And as expected, I went from doctor to doctor because we were just trying to figure out what was it that I was, having. And ultimately, it turned out to be, just the onset of menopause because all my other reports came out normal. So I want to, kind of talk to you about that as well. Those few months were a lot of kind of trial and experimentation for me, and also a lot of research as well, which is what I love to do. And I do research for my clients, and then I like to do research for me and for my family. So what I ended up doing was doing a lot of research, and I have learned a lot of things in that process, and I wanted to share all of that information with you. So one thing I'll tell you, RA and menopause are not a great those two things are not a great combination. And but there are definitely things that you can do to balance or to neutralize all those bad symptoms, and to whether it's in the form of supplements or other medications, which I'm going to talk to you about, and you can get it under control. So even like as I always do, even with my RA, I was, even when I was like really really poorly sick and really inflamed, I try to tell myself that things will get better, and they did. So even when I had all these horrible symptoms last few months, I kept telling myself that something positive is going to come out of this, and it did. So I'm going to share that with you. All right. So let's first start talking about just my RA. And I know a lot of you who come to this channel have seen my videos from, I believe, at least 3 years ago, when I gave an update about, how I was able to get my RA symptoms under control with the help of diet, lifestyle, and medications. So I want to give an update on that. So very brief update. Basically, things are the same. Nothing has changed much since that 3 months ago when I gave my update. Because I'm still continuing to manage my disease very effectively, very successfully with the help of medications, diet, and lifestyle. Now, why do I always talk about all three in the same sentence, right? Diet, lifestyle, and medication. Because honestly, folks, that is what's working for me. There are so many of you who will, either ask me questions on my YouTube channel, or, via email, or, just, clients who are consulting with me also always want to know whether it's possible to get rid of medications completely. In fact, some clients who come to me, their goal is that they want to get rid of medications, and that's why they want to try diet and nutrition. So this is what I tell everybody. When you have RA is like one of the toughest or the hardest or the most challenging autoimmune conditions that I have come across. I mean, of course, I have RA myself, but in my, last few years working with clients with all kinds of autoimmune disease, what I have seen is RA is the hardest to get under control. And RA can also cause systemic damage. And this is from my own research and from my own experience, personal experience, because my mother had RA too, and she unfortunately passed away very early in her late 50s with the RA actually affecting her jaw, her kidneys, and causing kidney failure. So I have seen that actually, personally, that how RA can have such a catastrophic impact on your body, because it can systemically damage the tissues. And so that's one thing about RA, for which reason I do not recommend that people get off of all medication completely. However, there are two things that can, or two or three things actually with medications, but when you have them in conjunction with diet and lifestyle changes, then this is what happens. The magic happens, right? What happens is, number one, when you use dietary changes, make the dietary changes, avoid all the things that I ask you to do, an elimination diet, and do AIP essentially. If you watched my other videos, you will know that that's what I'm a great advocate of: AIP diet, the elimination diet. And when you do that, reduce inflammation in your body. And the other advantage of doing AIP the right way, and I say AIP the right way because AIP does not just mean avoiding all non-AIP foods. It also means eating all the AIP rich foods in a nice manner, like eating a lot of nutrient dense foods, vegetables, like lots and lots of vegetables, lots of seafood and organ meat and things like that. So bringing all the nutrient density is also important in healing. So if you're doing all those things, then what happens is you not only bring the inflammation down, but you are also able to overcome the side effects of medications, of those RA medications. So, and I have, personally experienced this with my own, symptoms. Plus, on and on, these past few years, I have been seeing the same results with my clients, whom I consult. So what happens is, when I was just on medications alone and I wasn't watching my diet or watching my lifestyle, or not taking steps to like reduce the stress and do other things like make sure I'm sleeping well, etc., what happened was I did very, very poorly on medications. Like I was so weak, and I wasn't able to even have the energy to walk around. So the medications helped me this much. For example, like my pain, flares, they went down from 8 flares in a week, right, to maybe 6 flares in a week, right? They reduced a little bit. The pain intensity itself, like when my shoulders used to be flared up, I would have so much pain that when I started taking medication, maybe it reduced from like a pain level of 10 to maybe a pain level of 7. But that was it. That was the extent of benefit I saw with just when I was doing just medication alone. But when I incorporated diet, added the AIP diet, and also added supplements to help reduce inflammation, and then also added lifestyle practices, what happened is that's where I saw the magic happen, the synergy, because the diet was able to overcome the side effects of the medication. So I wasn't so weak and I didn't have, that low energy. Plus, the diet also helped further reduce inflammation. In addition to the impact of, reduction of inflammation by the medicines, the diet also helped to reduce the inflammation. And that's why my inflammation went totally under control, and my inflammation markers were all under normal levels within 3 months of starting this, right? And the third important thing is the second important thing is I was able to reduce the dose of my medication. So I initially started with methotrexate high dose, like 20 milligram of that, and 300 milligram of hydroxychloroquine. And because I added the diet and lifestyle changes, I was able to reduce both of those. So now I'm down to only 4 tablets of methotrexate, or 10 milligram, and 200 milligram of hydroxychloroquine. And not only that, just reducing the dose of this, I was able to prevent um, going into biologicals, because that is what my doctor had decided was the path for me. Considering the level of inflammation that I had, he had said that the only course left for me was like the biologicals, the injectable drugs, and which are stronger anti-inflammatory, but then they also have more pronounced side effects and adverse effects, right? So those were the things that I wanted to avoid. And I am still successfully able to avoid those biological medications. I'm still not, having to take any of those biological medications. And every 6 months, when I meet with my rheumatologist, I continue to impress him with how well I'm doing and how well even my regular markers like hemoglobin and blood counts, etc., are so much better than what they used to be when I was just on medication alone. So medication plus diet plus supplements plus lifestyles is the complete package that will help you with keeping your RA under remission. And so that is what's been working for me. And I do not want to change it. Many people ask me if I want to try and reduce and completely wean off of my medications. And honestly, at this stage right now, I'm not interested in reducing medications any further because of this reason. Because what I told you, that RA is a systemic disease, it can, damage things internally like organs, and I don't want to take the risk. I do, right now I'm only taking low dose of oral medications, and I'm okay continuing to take them because they are going to keep my RA under control, and that's what I want to I'm comfortable just doing that. Having said that, is it possible for any of you with, say, mild RA symptoms to be able to completely go off of medication? Yes, that can be possible, but it depends upon the extent of, autoimmunity or RA activity that is going on in your body. I've had like handful of clients, I would say, like very few clients who were able to completely go off of medication, but they were also the people who had come to me like very early in the game, like they had just been diagnosed with RA, and their RA was not at all very severe. It was like it's basically they just had the marker elevated, but they didn't have full-blown RA symptoms. But in my case, if you've seen my other earlier videos, you know that I have a very severe form of RA. My RA symptoms were like boom. The moment I was, even before I was diagnosed, I was pretty much like in a lot of pain. It just came on to me like really very fast and very severe. My shoulders were like very inflamed. My knees were inflamed. Basically all my joints were inflamed, and I was close to being bedridden. So considering that, right, where I was like what was that, like 6 7 years ago, 7 years ago first it started, and then for 2 years this continued, and then I started this diet and lifestyle changes, etc., 5 years ago. And since then I have been able to keep everything under control. So now, do I get flares? I do, but they are very rare, and almost every time there is a reason for it. Like I know that there is something that triggered it. And one of the most common reasons is change in diet. So just 2 days ago, like this past weekend, we had been to Boston, and I'm still largely following like an AIP template, but I have been able to successfully reintroduce some foods. Like I can eat some nuts, like walnuts and cashew nuts. I can have some rice, some quantity of rice I'm able to tolerate, some seeds, pretty much like all seed based spices, except for some strong nightshade spices like paprika I cannot handle. And then I cannot still do dairy. Dairy is very inflammatory for me, and eggs are very inflammatory for me. So this past weekend we had been to Boston, and I usually am very good at restaurants, like in ordering food, and I'll always ask them. I usually get a salad and stay compliant with within my AIP limitations. At this time, the menu was a little bit, the description was a little bit deceiving, so I just happened to order something which said like lemon grilled shrimp and in the form of a salad. And I did not really ask them whether there was going to be a dressing. And it actually, unfortunately, came with a lot of something that looked like a creamy dairy dressing on top of all the salad. And, and we were hard pressed, like we had tickets to go to the museum. And I had to eat that food. And I tried like very hard using my paper napkins, wiping off the dressing away from the shrimp and, trying to do my best I could. But despite that, the next day I had pain in my knees. I had basically a flare in my knee. So flare-ups still happen, but I always know the reason for it, right? So I know it's under control. Now, another thing this also tells me is that it tells me that my diet really helps in keeping my RA symptoms under control, correct? Because the medication I'm still taking, but despite the medications, if I'm still getting a flare up and I change my diet, what it tells me is my diet is also very, very key in keeping my symptoms under control. Similarly, my stress levels too. If I try to keep my working hours limited and I always get up and do, yoga stretches, etc. But if there is a certain week where I am not able to do all those, then again, I feel like beginnings of a flare coming up. So, so clearly it's not just the medications, it is diet and lifestyle. So it's all three together. That's what helps keep my RA symptoms under control. So, and then, yeah, the third part also, the medications, I was able to successfully reduce it to, some extent. But beyond that, when I tried, I can feel like the symptoms coming back. So I tried to reduce the, methotrexate further from the 4 tablets that I was taking. But I did very well for, like the first 3 months, and I felt like I would have been able to reduce that medication further. But after 3 months, I began to, suddenly started getting flare-ups here and there randomly, which were not related to the diet. Like I was still following 100%, compliant diet, but I was still getting a random flare-up. So that again, tells me that the medication is still needed, right? So that's why I always say the medication, diet, lifestyle, all these three things are needed. Regarding supplements, I have been able to cut down a lot of the supplements that I initially started with, because initially, there are a lot of deficiencies in your body and you're trying to overcome them by giving like a lot of vitamins, minerals, etc. Over time, I've been able to cut down the supplements, but I still continue to take some supplements because they're just healthy for you. They are just anti-inflammatory. And as we age, just taking some of the supplements are very, very beneficial. So I am continuing to take still a lot of supplements, although I've been able to cut them down significantly. So that is essentially my update for my RA. And I know this is becoming too long. I thought that I'll be doing a short video. So quickly, I will just give you an update on my menopause symptoms and what happened there. And then I might have to do like more videos to give you more detail on, what specific steps I took, etc. So let's see, in a very brief, summary, what I can tell you about my menopause symptoms. So 6 months ago, I suddenly started having very weird symptoms. Like my eyes started twitching. All of a sudden it would twitch, and then I would get like a dizzy spell. Like I feel like something inside my head, like shaking, and basically like a dizzying, like a vertigo kind of a thing for a few seconds. That would last for like 20-30 seconds, and after that I would be fine. But then I would have this lurking thing in my head that said that I'm having like some kind of a vertigo, feeling. And then even laying in bed, I would feel like that spinny thing, sensation coming on. So basically went to my physician, and he, I ordered a bunch of testing and like the normal, um, basically, elements and magnesium, calcium, etc., ions, and they all came back normal level. Then I went I knew that this was related to menopause because along with this weird symptom, I had also been getting very severe um, night sweats and hot flashes, So I'm 49 now, and this my hot flashes and night sweats started like when I was in my when I was 45, I believe. And I had been able to keep them under control or make them go away by using some natural herbal supplements. Like I was using black cohosh and donkai, and a supplement that is actually Equifem from Biotics, that really helped to me to overcome those perimenopause symptoms, and my periods were still normal. So so I was fine with that for a few years, like 3 or 4 years, until like 6 months ago when I started all these symptoms again, and my hot flashes and night sweats frequency also increased. It was like crazy. I would wake up in the middle of the night with my entire back sweating, and it was just like my breathing would increase too, because that was causing a lot of like palpitations and anxiety, plus this weird symptom that I said about my uh, vertigo, etc. So that's why I decided to go to my OBGYN and get my blood um, hormones tested. And that was a great thing that I did, because that showed that I had already reached menopause at 49, and my estrogen and progesterone levels had just plummeted very sharply. And my estrogen was like at 10 or something like that, which is like so low, and that is the reason when I went to see my OBGYN, she confirmed that I had hit menopause, and that some kind of fortunately for me, my OBGYN was open to HRT, and she asked me if I was open to using hormonal replacement therapy. So I told her I needed some time to think about it, and I used like a couple of weeks to go back and do some research on my own. And I watched a few videos here on YouTube as well by some menopause experts, and I will share those some of those in the description box so that you guys can also look at those people. But doing my own research, I understood that my symptoms, my menopause symptoms, were very, very severe, and that they needed treatment, and that HRT would be actually not a bad idea for me. In fact, I felt, considering my severity of my symptoms, I felt that I just couldn't go on like that without any solution. Clearly, based on what I read, I could make out that the lack of estrogen was what was causing my vertigo. Although, just for the record, my OBGYN completely denied that. She said that she did not think that the vertigo symptom had anything to do with menopause. And, she thought the night sweats and hot flashes were, but that the vertigo was nothing to do with that. However, I read a lot about estrogen, and what I found out was that estrogen can have a lot of neurological impact or effects in the body, and that having dizziness or vertigo is actually a symptom of menopause. So based on the research which told me that natural HRT with bioidentical hormones is actually a safe option for women, and in fact is recommended by a lot of functional medicine doctors, that it is actually a good practice for women. And then I also learned of research which basically said that menopause and RA are also kind of related, that RA triggers early menopause in women, and that people who have RA also tend to have severe menopause symptoms. And then people who go into menopause early then further have really debilitating RA symptoms, that their RA symptoms get worse too. And I got a taste of that too in those few short weeks, when I was going through all this dizziness and symptoms, etc. I also suddenly started having this peripheral neuropathy symptom, like carpal tunnel carpal tunnel kind of syndrome, which I had not had until now. So I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I would not be able to like turn my wrist at all, because they would be like, how they would just go to sleep. So my entire like wrist would go to sleep, and I would have to get up and like bang it, like get the circulation going on, and then I would be able to feel that. So with considering all those kinds of symptoms that I was facing, I decided that I will go ahead and take HRT, and I am so glad I decided to do HRT. So I am actually having estradiol skin patch and a progesterone, micronized progesterone capsules. And that is what constitutes HRT, estrogen as well as progesterone. But it's very important that you take the HRT that is very close to your hormones, like close to estrogen and progesterone, to the natural form as much as possible. So long story short, that was my menopause, what to say, the onset of menopause. But fortunately, HRT did wonders for me, and within a month or so after taking that, starting HRT, my symptoms vanished completely. All those symptoms that I was having, those horrible symptoms, went away completely. And even the carpal tunnel kind of syndrome that I was having, which was actually possibly triggering RA symptom, that also went away. So that is the reason I wanted to talk about this to you, because a lot of you, my followers have RA and are women and are perimenopausal. So I hope this video was useful to you, and I will continue to do more videos and talk to you a little bit, more about this perimenopause, menopause, and RA, and what kind of therapies there are and what you should be taking. But for now, I hope this was useful for you. Please drop in your questions in the comments, and I will try my best to answer them. All right. Thank you. Take care.